So this is going to be a more serious training session. We're going to be talking about diversity. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I say serious and then my phone goes off. Okay. We're going to be talking about diversity differences and responding to prejudice. So before we get started, I do want to focus on the goals of this training session. I know kind of haven't been doing that on the other ones. But this is going to be a more serious discussion. Like I said, it might be a little uncomfortable for some people because we're going to be looking at some biases, explicit and implicit biases that we bring to the table. So sometimes that can be hard for us to look kind of within and, see the uglier sides of things, I suppose. But I just want for us to keep in mind the mission and the goal of this training. And it's really just to learn how to celebrate differences in the camp setting, understanding how instances of prejudice can negatively impact a camper or a counselor's experience at camp, and learning how to empower counselors to create that safe camp environment, and knowing how to interrupt different instances of prejudice that may come up. So our overall objective is to know the specific techniques on how to de-escalate instances of prejudice at camp. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about why it's important for us to have this kind of workshop on diversity and differences, and why it's important to our campers and their families. And I will make note here.
I feel like one of the important parts of it is that kids are young, so they're impressionable, and their parents may say things that they don't really understand fully. So they might make a comment that they might not even mean to be harmful, but in reality could be very harmful to a camper or counselor. So we're able to correctly help them understand why that comment's not appropriate and why it can hurt other people's feelings, and how instead of saying this, maybe next time we could say something else like this, just so they kind of had a better understanding of why it's not appropriate to say certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? Anything? Anybody have anything to share? Raptor, really hit it on the nose. I think it's also important to think about the different backgrounds that our campers come from. Yeah, Alpina?
So I think it's important that we have time to do a workshop as staff, because we also have different experiences and views on life. So it's important to educate ourselves as well.
Yeah. Oh, news. Perfect. Anything else? Anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay. Well, yeah, those are two really important reasons as to why. And like I said, our campers all come from various backgrounds. And so, one, it is important for us to learn how to be open to listening to others, listening about other points of view that maybe we hadn't considered. And it's important for us to know that so that we can model that for our campers. Like Raptor said, they are at a very impressionable age, and they may be hearing things from others that they may not see as harmful or hurtful, but they are. And so it's important for us to know how to approach that in a a meaningful way. Like, you don't want to approach these kinds of situations with anger, especially towards a kid. So it's definitely important to know how to have these really important conversations, and how to de-escalate these kinds of situations. So perfect. So obviously we're going to have some conversations today that may make some of us uncomfortable, but I think that this is really an important time to establish group norms, kind of like how you would do, I guess, in like elementary school in a way, but like, you know, when you would set the rules or the things that you want to have walking into these kinds of serious conversations. So what's something that we can do to make sure that this space that we're in now is welcoming and making sure that we aren't hurtful to each other. This is a safe space, so how can we create a safe space here? We don't have to do 6, but if someone has 1 or 2. Anything?
Well, I think just kind of creating an atmosphere that is, you know, equitable in the sense that everybody gets the same opportunities to speak. Straying away from stereotypes, not making any crass jokes, which I don't think any of us would, but, you know, always important to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being cognizant of what we say.
Okay. Yes. So,
I'd also say have like an open mind, and I think this goes for like a person that's like not talking, or like not sharing out, not. I won't say not taking it to heart because I can't really tell people how to feel, but not pretty much not being like, there's a word that I'm looking for that I don't know. Yeah, not really not taking it to heart, but there's another word that I'm looking for, you guys. I just don't know what it is. Yeah.
yeah. Were you saying kind of like maybe if somebody says something that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, like, I don't know, maybe creating a space where if somebody says something and maybe it's hurtful or you know, offensive to you, maybe like creating this space where we're comfortable saying that, saying, hey, you know, you said that and you know, that didn't really sit well with me, and like explain
Right.
why maybe that was hurtful or why that's a harmful thing to say, because that's
Yeah.
we should be creating for campers. So it's definitely a space we should create for us as well. Yeah, I'll put that down. I want to say like calling out, but creating a space where we can share why something is hurtful. Yeah, I think that's an absolutely very important thing to establish here. Perfect. Okay. Well, if anybody have anything else to share?
I do.
Yeah.
I think us understanding and then helping the kids understand that everyone is different and it's in a good way. Everyone is unique in their own way.
Yeah.
And that's like okay. Everyone's gonna have their own views, their own opinions, they're gonna look different. That's something where you should be like okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay with the thought of difference.
Absolutely, yeah. And just being respectful of each other and being respectful of, you know, yeah. I think you hit it on the nose. Thanks, Sophia.
Yeah. I just want to add one more thing. I think that like something interesting about that is like maybe somebody might surprise us with what was it like with their differences that aren't necessarily negative. Maybe it might change up what is required of activities. So I know like especially differently abled people, like disabled people, or you know, taking into account disability if we have to, and that's something that we need to be like, yeah, we have to change this activity. So
yeah, absolutely. Accommodations for sure. Awesome. Anything else? Anybody else have anything to add?
I'm going back on what Goose said. Going back to the disability thing as well, understanding that just because someone is disabled doesn't mean they can't do things that other people can do. They just do it differently, whatever works for them, and accommodating that for them.
Yeah. I say, yeah, being aware and accommodations that may be needed. I think that's an excellent point to make. Thanks, Sobo. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for sharing. Anybody else have anything to add to this list of group norms? No? Okay, that's all right. That was an excellent list. So yeah, just keeping those in mind as we go through this session, and just making sure this is a safe space and that we're respectful of each other's opinions and what we bring to the table. So first and foremost, kind of what are we talking about when we say the word, not word, but ism. We see that at the end of words. I'm trying to think of the name of that. I'm a teacher, I should probably know that. But ism, when you see that at the end of a word. So that is any act or expression that creates exclusion or is exclusionary. So what types of prejudices could this definition include? So what words have ism in it that could include excluding a certain person or group of people?
One important one would be ableism.
Yeah. What else?
Okay, I don't know why the first word that popped into my head was baptism, but I feel like that
I
was
think
very
with ableism
important.
too, it's like that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because people and their different religious views, that can also be a prejudice thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like an ism that would not baptism, but I get where you're coming from.
Baptism.
I'm trying to think of yeah, I can't think of an ism with that, but just like we're gonna put prejudice against religion because I can't think of an ism for that. But I think
that is interesting. There's not an ism.
You would think that there would be. That is strange.
I think
But that's a great,
just
great
like a
point.
complicated word.
Yeah. But yeah, that definitely is something to consider as well. So thank you for that. And Gu, were you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say like with ableism, then that can it's just that can present itself in so many different ways too. So I don't know if I was just adding a fluffy comment there, but
that is what this time is for. So yeah.
The big one, the racism.
Yeah.
That is one. I would have said that first, but oh yeah, sorry. But I don't think our campers are racist in my opinion. So, but yeah, Lucky, that was a good point.
What did you say, Lucky? I'm sorry.
Sexism.
Sexism. Thank you.
Also, I don't know if there's an ism for this either. I might just not be coming up with a word, but anything about like sexuality or gender.
Yeah. It can also, yeah, I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be ism, but like homophobia. Transphobia as well. Did I not spell that right? I did. Okay. Anything else you could think of?
I don't think that this would be seen as much like within kids. This is more something that you see like systematically, but classism.
Yeah, absolutely. You can kind of, maybe not necessarily classism in kids, I guess. They don't really know that, but like, I kind of think of that in a way of like, maybe how people dress. You kind of have that like stereotype that comes into play. Like, I think that's mostly like when you're younger. No one really thinks of that when you're older. But like thinking of that, like how some people may come dress a certain way and that may come off as a, certain classism. Anything else anybody can think of? This is a really great list. Okay. So yeah, perfect. So when we are talking about these kinds of isms, phobias, where do these expressions and behaviors come from? In a sense of like, where not necessarily where they originate, but like how do we see that, I guess? Like what influences these kinds of things?
I'd say with opinions on those certain topics, it's what Banana said, how people are raised, what the parents kind of believe, and what they learn from their parents and the people around them.
Yeah, for sure. It's like personal experience.
I would say
I think
lack of-
now a lot of stuff can come from early access to the internet.
Internet, social media.
I would say lack of exposure to other cultures.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I'd also say with especially like probably like middle school age kids following trends, whatever their friends like, they like, sort of thing.
Yeah. Anything else? Also, if anyone, this could be anyone, I guess, but if somebody puts something in the chat that maybe I don't see, please let me know. Anything else? I think we covered a really good amount. It kind of like encompasses everything, but really just that some people are afraid of things that are different from them. They're afraid of change and afraid of differences that maybe they've never experienced or come across. So that definitely, I think that definitely comes into play with like personal experience, as you said, how people are raised, but definitely a big one. Okay. So, so before we do that, I kind of wanted to talk about how, which maybe this comes up later, but really, no, I don't think it does. I kind of wanted to talk about how these kinds of things can make people feel. Whether, how does it make people feel, or how does it make you feel when you come across these kinds of phobias or, isms? This can be.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
It can lead. It can lead to a lot of things like the Pygmalion effect, or like stereotype threat, where specifically with stereotypes, where if a stereotype is applied to, especially to a kid, then oftentimes they end up actually matching their behavior to that stereotype, whether because of anxiety that is presented to them, or because they're just told so many times that they are this way that they really start to believe it. So a lot of times our words, especially around children, can create our reality. So that can do it.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of goes back to what Raptor said at the beginning. Kids are very impressionable, and they really take in, they really are like sponges. They take in what people say to them, and if it's something that's hurtful, that stays with them. I'm sure we've all probably experienced something like that in some form, hurtful comments that have stayed with you for even now when you're an adult, and especially in these situations when, these can be identities of children, and they really, they just take in what you say. So being cognizant of that. Anybody else? Or maybe how, looking at it from the other perspective of people that are kind of afraid of those differences, how do they tend to react if somebody says something to them like, hey, that was actually a hurtful thing to say, or that is, racist, that is homophobic? How do people react to that when they are in that situation if they are afraid of those kinds of differences?
Can I go again?
Yeah, absolutely, you can go again.
Okay. I think it's like really easy to the first feeling to have is defensive. I think feeling as though all of a sudden like everybody hates you when really it's not that people hate you, it's just that, oh, that comment was not good.
Yeah.
So I think being defensive.
Yeah, so
going off of that, also just the feeling of overall like loneliness feeling like misunderstood because they just want to belong in a place, and then that comment could come in and it just completely like just goes down with their self-confidence and who they are as a person.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have anything to add from either side on?
Yes, Banana said they might also feel more aware of what they said after being told it was wrong.
Yeah, that's an excellent point to make. Yeah, not everyone is
May
going to
have
be
never
on
thought
that
about how they
fence.
felt.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And may have never thought about how they felt before.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, thank you for reading that, Alpina. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you will come across people that get defensive in these situations because they feel like it's an attack on them and who they are. But you also have people who maybe just didn't realize it. And I think you'll see that a lot in kids where they just didn't know what they said was hurtful. So that's why these kinds of conversations are really important to have, because they may not have been aware. And you may be the first person letting them know, hey, that's not a really nice thing to say to somebody, and explaining to them why. That's a great point. Thanks, Banana. Okay. Anybody else before we move on? No? Okay. Okay. Oh, there is. That's what it was. Okay. I knew it was coming up. So, all right. So, setting up for success, the importance of role models. We are modeling positive behavior. At least we should be. We should be modeling positive behavior for campers. Because, like I said, sometimes kids are more in tune with what being disrespectful looks like than being respectful. So, it's really important to kind of check yourself at the door. Being aware of what you may bring into a situation, being aware of the bias that you might have when you come in. I always think that that is the most important thing, because what you say and what you do is going to show our campers, and they're going to, if you say something that is hurtful, or harmful, and maybe you didn't realize it, maybe you say something that is very stereotypical, they're going to take that and they might run with it. And so you have to be so aware of how you say things, to our campers. So, do say, believe when talking about negative behaviors, always match a negative with a positive alternative. So rather than just saying like, hey, what you said is hurtful. Okay, why? Why was it hurtful? Why is it a harmful thing to say? And then, or if it's something they do, like, what is a positive thing that they could do instead? Instead of doing this, how could we react to this? And yeah, just being accountable to each other, and then holding each other to that standard, because we are models for our campers. That's just going to be successful all the way around. So now, have some discussion time. What are some concrete ways that we can set up the CASM environment to celebrate diversity and differences? So we can start off. We're going to have more time to go kind of more in depth in this, but just right off the bat, what are some ways that we can create this safe and welcoming environment to celebrate diversity and differences?
One thing that we did last year, as part of our training, is we added our pronouns to our custom names, so that those who identified as something else could have a safe space to do so. And also role models, um, like when they see the counselors doing that, it's like, oh, that's cool, like I feel more comfortable sharing my own pronouns.
Absolutely. That's a great example. Can anybody think of
Um,
oh yeah, go ahead, Elephant.
I don't say this like a celebratory thing, but the one thing that we do is not really like we're not really like holiday specific, because certain people don't celebrate certain holidays.
Absolutely. Anything else? Those are two really great ones. That kind of kicks us off. We're going to have a discussion in small groups. So we're going to take a couple of minutes to talk about these questions. I'll put these in the chat. So we're going to be talking about how to keep campers' behavior in perspective, things to remember when dealing with these kind of behaviors, and objectives for the behavior change. So what do you want to see differently? Other than just stopping the exclusionary behavior, like I said previously, we should give them a positive alternative because maybe they don't know what else they can do. So I'm going to, I think you guys are already in breakout rooms, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Actually, I'm going to make them smaller because we have like 16 million people. Give me 1 second.
1 second is up. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. You're a good one. Okay, I'll put those in the chat before I do that because I know that it'll disappear if I don't. Okay, go ahead and go to your breakout rooms. Oh, Banana, did I not put you in a breakout room? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll assign you to one. Okay.
I think for the third one, especially touching on what like Nacho said, sometimes they don't really know like a different alternative, so kind of giving them one would be helpful than just like than just redirecting their behavior, like also telling them what they did wrong and then giving them that, like, I think this should be done such and such.
Yeah, and I don't think like just getting mad at them is, just like you said, providing a positive alternative behavior when they might not know is definitely better than just like getting mad at them and not giving them the tools to better themselves,
Right.
because they are young, and like we were saying, like it's not always their choice or decision to behave that way. They're shaped by the environment that they're in, especially like the younger ones.
Yeah.
They're all learning so much, like, anyways. So being able to teach them, like, hey, that's not a right thing to say. It could have hurt their feelings and why. So
Absolutely.
I think teaching them the why is a very important part, for sure.
Cool. Anything else?
I think things to remember, like Lucky, kind of touched on, like they come from different backgrounds, like how they're raised and their social learning. Like it's not just how they're raised, but their education system and who they're around, extended family, such and such. Like sometimes, everybody doesn't have like the same family, everybody doesn't have the same morals and values, just kind of keeping that in mind.
I also think cabin chat is a really, really good time to like have people like talk about some of their personal stuff and stuff they've been through a little bit, and then you embracing that and showing positivity towards everyone. That, I mean, a lot of us are seen as big role models, especially for the younger kids and the older kids, and they watch us and our actions. And so us embracing everyone in an equal way and embracing everyone for their differences and building people up will also teach them, just by them watching us, to embrace everyone and to be equal in that way.
Absolutely. That kind of goes with, I mean, we're going to talk about this in a second, but like kind of goes with having a plan before we go into it on the kind of positive behaviors that we want to develop with campers. And definitely one of them is discussing the idea of respect and being respectful of others. Yeah, that's a really great point. This is me not keeping track of what time we started, but probably give it another minute or two. It'll probably be the end.
Also, I know, like, I know we're not gonna be able to do this really for online camp, but I know for in-person, when we first started like doing cabin chats, one of the first things we did is we made like a big poster of like all the cabin rules and stuff like that. And I think making an environment and like really starting off by saying like we're here to build each other up, not tear each other down, and having that respect towards each other and putting that as an actual rule on a wall, like you need to build each other up, and we make a big deal about that, will also help with that. Like we're all here for each other, we're all here for a reason, for the same reason, and and even through all of our differences, we all have one thing in common, and that's a parent with cancer. Like all of those kids are all going through that pain and that confusion and scared time, and so even through all of our differences, we're all still connected. So
yeah, and I think that may be something that would be a good idea to establish. Like that should be a part of our plan, I think, for cabin chats first day, like taking time to establish, I mean, expectations, like we said, but especially including, being respectful of others and creating a welcoming space. I think that should definitely be something that we implement. So I may have you share that in a second.
okay.
Back. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna go back. I think it's been 5 minutes or ish. So I was muted. Okay. I think everyone is back. So would anyone like to share what they talked about in the group?
I will. So what I ended up talking about was with cabin, especially like in-person camp, with cabin chats. And one of the first things we did in cabin chats was make a poster for the cabin, and it was just a bunch of rules for the cabin. Like we would put stuff like 5-minute showers and stuff like that on it. And I think from the beginning, having like the rule like respect others, build each other up, we're here for a reason, sort of thing, having that mentality and being like, yeah, we don't tear people down here, we build each other up, we're all here for a reason, and doing that should help. I also mentioned that even though we're all different and we all have different views and we all have different everything, family situations, anything we've been through, all of those kids are connected because they all deal with the same thing. They're all here because they have a parent with cancer. And especially making that known, like we're all here for a reason. We're all here for the same reason. And finding that similarity is very important.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ibo.
That was a good point. In our group, we talked about one thing to remember is that these campers will be at home in an environment where they are used to acting a certain way. So that's an important thing to remember when you're dealing with prejudiced behavior. And one thing that we did last year, because we didn't really have to do this often as far as I know, but when we are dealing with it, like it's important to not make the camper feel embarrassed. So just like, hey, so really quick, that behavior was wrong because of this, or not wrong necessarily, but like, let's try to do this because something. I'm losing my train of thought, but just after you handle the situation, just redirect very quickly and back to the activity that you were doing so that the rest of the campers don't have time to focus on what a specific camper said so that camper doesn't feel embarrassed.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You kind of bring up a technique that I was gonna mention. So the idea of like replacement and mediation and responsibility. So having that talk with them and saying, hey, like this is what you did, and that was kind of a hurtful thing to say or do. Um, Maybe even brainstorming with them, like what's a better way that we could approach this? And if they really just can't think of anything, having the idea ready, like saying, okay, this is something that you could do differently. Um, and then also just reaffirming the expectation of, at camp, we are respectful of each other. And so, in order to be respectful, this is what we need to do. And like setting that, they have that responsibility to themselves and the responsibility to their fellow campers and counselors of being respectful of each other. Those are great points. Thanks, Jalapeno. Anybody else? No. Perfect. Well, those are some really great things. I don't really have a slide for this next part, but it's just kind of something I wanted to talk about. Just having a plan before we go into camp, which this is something we can do a little bit closer to camp, but having a plan of developing those positive behaviors. So I don't know, just discussing the idea of respect and kind of what Zobo mentioned, like having a list of expectations for our cabin chats. What are some ways that we can create a safe and positive space for all of us to share our ideas and our feelings and what have you. I think it'd be a really good idea for us to do our first day, our first cabin chat, establishing those expectations before we go in, and then being able to model those positive behaviors for them. Okay. So just some things to keep in mind is that our campers are children. So if you feel the need to argue or yell or debate a child, then you're not really in the right state of mind to be dealing with the issue, and you should refer it to somebody else. Um, like we've mentioned a lot of times, our kids are very impressionable. They've probably heard things from other people, and so that may not be what they may not say what they intend. They may say things without thinking about the repercussions of them. And that's why these conversations are important to have, because they may just not be aware of it. So you should never yell at a camper. You should express why what they said or did was wrong in a very calm way. Just think about how somebody comes at you reckless. Like, are you going to change your behavior? You're just going to keep doing what you were doing. If someone comes and like yells at you for it, like you shouldn't be making them feel bad, because 9 times out of 10 they didn't mean it. They didn't intend to hurt others with what they said or did. And also ensuring that we approach these situations immediately. Don't let time pass. If you see something or hear something, definitely approach it then and there. And then also ensuring the immediate and long-term physical safety of the campers and ensure their emotional safety as well. So how do we do this? Oh my gosh, I did make slides. This is me thinking I didn't make those slides, and I did. I just did it. Okay. Does anybody have any other idea? I see you laughing at me, Robert. I know, I'm sorry. I'm a mess. Does anybody have any other ideas on how we can kind of create that safe space for our campers? I just had a couple, but does anybody else have any other ideas that they want to share? It's okay if not. kind of a mess right now, so that's on me. No, that's okay, because we're gonna talk more about it anyway. So, yeah, I guess I just jump ahead of myself. I get really excited and I really want to share this information with you. So going back over. So, understanding the feelings of the campers, but also when you're approaching these situations, obviously, like I said, it should be immediate. But the first person that you should talk to, if something was directed at another camper, that camper is the one you need to talk to first. So make sure that they feel heard and they are able to express why something hurt their feelings. And keeping in mind that they don't have the responsibility to forgive the other camper. If something hurtful is said to them, their feelings are valid and they're allowed to feel what they are feeling. And they don't have to say, like, oh, it's okay, or just brush it off. You might have some campers that do that, but you might have others that say that really did hurt me. And they do not have to forgive the other camper for saying or doing something that was harmful. And then, like I said, yeah, dealing with it immediately. First time it happens. Hopefully the first time you address it, it doesn't happen again, but maybe it does. And if it does, being sure to speak to the camp advisor, which I think our camp advisor this year, is that Roxy again?
No, and it's actually not Roxy this year. It is Lizard, who we will be setting up a meeting with soon. So everybody, ISU and BSU will get to meet her. But she's amazing. You'll love her. She's so much fun.
Awesome. Yeah, so that will be our camp advisor. So she's kind of the person that oversees everything for our camp. And so if you do have a camper that consistently says something hurtful, harmful after you've already talked to them about it, bring it up to the camp advisor, and that would be something that she would be able to handle, because that shouldn't all fall on you. So now we have our diversity and differences handout, which I'll just share it. That'll be a lot easier. Which I don't know why that, sorry, just bear with me. We've already done that. I literally just did it in slides instead of having to show you. I knew I had an idea when I made this slide, and that was why. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so this is kind of going back to what I talked about earlier with the replacement, mediation, and responsibility. So these kind of behavior management strategies. So replacement, so it's helpful to see behaviors in pairs or sets. For every bad behavior, there is a good behavior, just like we've talked about, reinforcing a positive behavior for them to do instead. So it's not just enough to tell them, hey, just stop doing that. It's important to teach them what they should do instead. And so helping them understand how to problem solve. They're still kids. They haven't really learned how to do that yet. Older kids probably have, but especially the younger ones, they don't really know how to approach these kinds of situations. And like I've said before, we are their role models, so we should be modeling for them how to problem solve and how to think of other ways to do things. And then we have mediation, so talk and teach. So this is kind of a little more difficult in a Zoom setting, obviously, because of the ratio we need to keep. But I think Raptor mentioned earlier, maybe we could create, if it comes down to it, creating like a breakout room for having a couple of counselors and a couple of, if you have a couple of campers that have been doing something. That's something I guess we could kind of discuss later on. But you shouldn't, really the goal is you shouldn't be saying something to them in front of everyone. You shouldn't be calling them out, and especially the person who was affected. You don't want to put them on a spot and make them even more uncomfortable than they probably already are. So if we are able to find a good way of doing this, I guess that's something we'll talk about later. But giving everybody time to kind of cool off in the situation. That way we don't have anybody super angry or like crying. Like that'd probably be really embarrassing for someone to have to cry in front of like 500 people. So maybe give some people some space and let them kind of feel the feelings that they're having. And try and solve the problem. If one or more kids can't agree, then they probably just need a little bit more time to cool down, and maybe it's something that you should come back to a little bit later. But like I said earlier, it should be addressed immediately. But if this is kind of, you have to decide this on your own. If you think you're really just not getting anywhere, maybe just giving them a little bit more time to cool off, maybe think about, the situation, letting them take that in and feel the feelings they need to, and then you can come back. And so you can just express that, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more time because I think that, we need to come back to this later, but we will be coming back to this later. Don't wait like a whole day or something. Like give them 5-10 minutes, give them a little bit of time, but don't wait for forever to address the situation, because you don't want the camper that was affected to feel like it's being brushed off and that they're not going to be talked to. So,
Hey, Nacho.
yeah. Oh no.
Nacho, you keep cutting out.
No. I was afraid. I was going so well. I was afraid this was going to happen. Shoot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're having trouble understanding you.
Shoot. 1 second.
I mean, we can hear you.
Kind of.
I think you have a bad connection.
Okay. Un momento.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
I'm glad we talked about that. That was. We can see the slides. It's just you.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Raptor. Oh no. Oh no.
I love the face that she's frozen at right now. She's
Oh,
like,
no.
I'm like sitting here. I have like Jalapeno Raptor and Haley on my screen, and they're all doing the same thing.
I was trying to screenshot it and then it went away and I was like, dang it.
I gotta send this to her. Show her what it looks like. Nacho, don't move. Oh, she's calling me. Hello?
Hey.
Oh.
Hey, Pat.
Yes, we can see the slides.
This one is great too. Also, Lucky, your dog is cute.
Thank you. It is Tito.
That's a perfect name.
Raptor, do you want to do these, or do you want me to? Him?
Yeah, this is wonderful.
Lucky, if you know it better than me, like feel free to.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't matter. Whoever wants to do, go for it. I just don't feel like if I continue, this is going to work out for anyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we on IDing and interrupting prejudice?
Tell her we are on. Tell her. Tell Lucky we are on responsibility. So I have to.
Okay. Behavior management strategies. Responsibility. When kids don't feel responsible or in control, they cannot admit fully to their mistakes. When processing with a camper about something that has happened, they will frequently seek to blame others or defer responsibility in some way. A great technique is to ask, and what did you do? Or what choice did you make? What did you do to make that happen, so that they recognize the agency they have in their own actions. So emphasize the fact that they do have power and control, and a huge choice is how you're going to react and feel about something that has happened. For instance, if somebody...
Next slide, Nacho.
Identifying and interrupting prejudice and microaggressions. Microaggressions are the everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. Prejudice is an unjustified or incorrect attitude, usually negative, towards an individual based solely on the individual's membership of a social group. Interruptions are a skill used to address microaggressions. The goal of an interruption is to encourage respectful communications, destroy isms and stereotypes, and to educate and learn something together. So if you see something is going that sort of way, or as soon as something pops up, you should say something and address it so it doesn't just like slide and perpetuate the harmful behavior. Sorry if I like get, when I just am reading these, it's super monotonous. How to interrupt. So you want to separate the person from the action or behavior. Instead of saying you're racist, try saying that could be perceived as a racist remark. Being called a racist puts someone on the defensive and can be considered fighting words. Avoid starting questions with why. That also puts people on the defensive. Instead, try how or what made you. When addressing a microaggression, try to avoid using the pronoun you too often because it can leave people feeling defensive and blamed. Instead, use I statements describing the impact on you, or instead refer to the action indirectly. For example, when blank was said or when blank happened. How you say it is as critical as what you say. So tone of voice, body language, all of that is just as important as the words that you're coming out of your mouth. It has to be conveyed in a respectful way to the camper, even if one is having a strong negative reaction to what's being said. So it's helpful to think about your intention when interrupting a microaggression. Do you want them to understand the impact of their action? We do. Or stop their behavior? We also do if they're being, an ism. Some helpful tips. Inquire. Ask the speaker to elaborate. Can you say more about that? What is it about this that concerns you the most? Perhaps just giving more thought to what they're saying can help solve the problem. Will you go back a slide? Thank you. Paraphrase or reflect. Demonstrates understanding and reduces defensiveness of both you and the speaker. So reflect both content and feeling whenever possible. So it sounds like you think blank, or you're saying you believe blank. You can also reframe. So if you create a different way to look at the situation, perhaps a hypothetical, what would happen if, could there be another way to look at this? What might it feel like if it happened to your blank? So that just kind of giving them a different perspective on the situation so that they can understand it better. Impact statements. I felt blank when you said or did blank. And it blank. You want to let them know what ramifications their actions and statements have, what power their words have on other people and on you, so that they, I think most of our kids are naturally empathetic, so kind of creating opportunity to channel that can be very helpful. And lastly, preference statements. Clearly communicating one's preferences rather than stating them as demands or having others guess what is needed. What I would like is blank, or it would be helpful to me if blank. So instead of being like, I need, or you have to, where it's kind of more imposing, it's, giving them the opportunity to be better people.
Okay, we like
Thank you. Sorry if that was just like, I was just reading, but I tried to not be boring.
Hey! I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening. My internet is going wrong. We literally just have one more thing to do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like not talking into the, empty. Okay.
Not just the practice one, right?
Yes. So now we're just gonna practice. I also, really quick, I'm sorry, I know we're almost done. I realized I muted myself. Does that mean that when you were talking, because I was recording, no one can hear you when I go back and watch it?
No.
I
Do
get
you mean me or just yourself?
like I muted me, but then you were talking and I feel like the sound comes from there. I don't know. We're just gonna, it'll be fine. It'll be
I
fine.
think if everyone else heard me talking, it was recorded.
It just records the session. Fine.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if mine end. Okay. I love to hear that. Okay. This is literally the last thing we have to do, and then we will be done. So we're going to practice in breakout rooms of, oh my goodness. There it goes. Okay. How are we going to handle these kinds of situations? So what would you say and how would you react? So it has like 6 of them, but there's only like 2 breakout rooms. So, or there's 3, I guess. So choose one of these situations to do when you get in your groups. I will put these in the chat. I don't know if they stay. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I'll put it in the chat anyway. So when you get there, yeah, everyone kind of decide what you want to do and then discuss how you would react to those situations and like keeping in mind like positive reinforcement, like positive behaviors that you can model yourself as well, or give them alternatives to what they said, but also especially like how are you going to approach 1, the camper that said it, and also 2, the camper that it was, if it was towards another camper, how are you going to approach those? So am I still good? Now I'm really paranoid. Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna stop sharing and do breakout rooms. And we're actually just gonna do 2 breakout rooms. I'm just gonna reassign some people. 1 second. No one's surprised by this. So okay. Go ahead and do that and go to your breakout rooms.
Can I just say, Lucky, that while Nacho was explaining that, you had just like this look on your face and you looked so angry for like no reason. And I was just in love with it.
Angry? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just tired.
He was like, I was like, what's wrong?
I might have just been like itching my nose. Sorry.
It was great.
This is me. Really hoping you can still hear me.
We can.
Okay. Now I'm really paranoid.
I had to walk around my house to get a better signal too.
Do you guys still see the situation?
Yeah, I pasted them.
Which one would y'all like to do?
I mean,
what were you gonna say?
No, you're good.
I don't know what I was gonna say. You go.
So I'm picking number 1 through 6. Ready, set, go.
4.
3.
Okay, I heard 4 first. So 1, 2, 3. A group of campers saying something derogatory about one camper's clothes.
Yeah. So I guess first, how would you react? Well, how would you discuss it with the camper that it was towards? So the affected camper, what would you say?
I would go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I would probably start off by complimenting their clothes. Like I'd be like, "Oh wait, but I really like your shirt. Like I think it's super cool what you're wearing," and like just like talking them up like their style. Hopefully the other campers will follow. But also taking them off to the side and being like, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with your clothes," and like explaining like to have okay differently, not to feel ashamed of that.
I think that's definitely a good step. And then what would we say to the people that are offenders that were talking the smack about the clothes?
In that situation, I feel like I would try to explain like, hey, that's not appropriate because, you know, this camper may really like this shirt and you're making this camper feel really bad that, you know, his shirt may not be as cool as he thought it was. Can you explain like why you said what you did, but do you like, and then kind of see if they can understand like why what they said is wrong, but without using the word wrong, obviously, and just kind of get them to understand like why they shouldn't say that, and instead be like, next time maybe we could say, hey, why did you?
Hi. Oh, wait, who is this? Sorry, I can't see what your name is. Who is this? Oh, hey. Oh no, I can't hear you. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Oh,
I will.
my phone like was like, oh nope.
Oh no, it's okay. We're in small groups, so I'll just I'll assign you to a breakout room.
Chili beans.
And there you go.
You know, and I think if we explain that to them, that's important, you know.
Very. Hi, Peaches and Nacho.
Hey, Peaches. Right, and Nacho.
Again.
I guess I didn't really set a time limit for this today. I was just kind of like, okay, go.
Do we want to do another one?
Sure.
All right, so I'm picking number 1 through 6 again.
3, because I said it last time.
Okay. I almost was like, let's just do 3. A group of campers excluding a camper with special needs.
This one would be kind of. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like this is kind of one of those situations where is the camper aware of that they are being excluded, and that's where you kind of decide if you discuss that or not, because they may not be aware, and then you bring it up, it's gonna make them feel bad.
Yeah, I can assure you, growing up, I could see that my brother's being left out of things, but he would be like completely like, see, there's like also some kids who are especially my brother, who are kind of, it's not okay for them to not be a part of the group, but they're okay with being not a part of the group. My brother is one of those people who likes to be alone more and do stuff by himself, but I guess to start off with explaining to the kid who's being left out, like, hey, you deserve to be a part of that too. Like, I want you to realize, like, we want you to be here, we want you to participate, we want you to be a part of camp and what we're doing, and then probably going over and explaining to kids like, hey, is there any way we could accommodate this person to participate in this activity? I don't want them sitting out and not enjoying their time at camp, and seeing if there's a way to adjust what they're doing activity wise so that it can accommodate that special needs person.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the virtual environment, it's going to be a little harder for people to leave others out because we're all going to be kind of together, but that's kind of where the responsibility falls on us to make sure that everyone feels like they're included in the conversation, in the activity that we're doing, making sure everyone feels included. It's a little easier on us, I think, in the virtual setting because no one can really exclude someone. But yeah, just acknowledging, like, if you see somebody, you can just kind of tell, like, if you see someone, maybe they look really confused, maybe they're not quite sure what they should be doing, reeling them back in, saying, hey, like, do you need help with something? And kind of things like that.
My dad is so rude. I know he just heard you guys talking. He's just gonna come in here and start talking to me. I'm like, can you close my door back, please?
Okay, my dad literally came in. They're about to go kayaking. Him and my mom. He comes in. He goes, "It's time to kayak." I had to like mute myself. I was like, I am in the middle of something right now. Thank you.
I'm glad he's excited though.
I'm glad you're excited, but I'm kind of
Right.
okay. How would we like on the other end? How would we address the campers that we're excluding? Like, what's another way we could kind of say, "Hey, not nice."
Definitely, they need to understand like what they were doing, and we should, try to give them an opportunity to put themselves in their shoes, like, so they understand the excluded campers' perspective more. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think always kind of referring back to our main goal of camp, which is that everyone feels welcome. And that's definitely something to continue to bring up, especially if we've set that expectation at the beginning. It's always good to refer back to the expectations and referring back to the kind of space that we want to create. Perfect. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add before we go back? No? Okay. Well, I'll see you guys back there. Do we have everyone back? No, we're still missing some people. Okay. There we go. Welcome back, everyone. I think we have everyone back. Yeah. Okay, so now if there's anyone that wants to share from their group, say which situation you chose, and then everyone in your group can chime in, obviously. So kind of talk about how you would react if there was another camper directly affected, how you would approach that, and how you would approach the camper that did what they did.
Okay, we kind of forgot to talk about the camper that was affected, but the situation that we talked about first was a camper saying that something is gay or etc. So how we would react to that statement is kind of like, hey, so this could be perceived as homophobic. How about in the future, let's say, oh, that's interesting, I haven't encountered that before, or something like that. And it's important to make sure that the camper that was affected by the statement, or the counselor that was affected by the statement, feels validated, I guess, that they don't deserve people saying stuff like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you said the counselor that could be affected as well, because that's also included. Obviously, some things could be said that maybe you feel hurt by, whether it's another counselor or another camper. Definitely, your voice should be heard in these situations as well, if you were affected. So, thank you for bringing that up too. Anybody else? Anything? Anything at all? Don't all jump.
I mean, our group should share one. We did both the comments on clothing, and then exclusion of someone with special needs. And the main point in both of them was getting the campers that were offending to understand the offended's perspective, and try to and like teach them, and making sure that the excluded one had an opportunity to they deserve to be included, and everyone should know that, and we're all focused on building each other up and creating a sense of community, and that the things that we say have power.
Absolutely. We also kind of talked about referring back to our main goal of creating a safe space. So like when you're talking to another camper and explaining, why what they said or did was harmful, just referring back to, remember, like, this is camp and this is a safe space for everyone, and we respect each other here, and what you said doesn't fall under that. I think it's always good to refer back to the expectations that we've set. So perfect. Does anybody else have anything to add, anything to share? No? Okay.
You had something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna remind people that yes, our campers are good people, and like they're all good kids, but situations like this can happen, and that's why it's important to understand and know what to do in a situation. So
Absolutely. For sure. Okay. There's a video I wanted to show, but I have a feeling if I try to show it, the audio is gonna be wonky on it. And it's really long, so I wasn't gonna show the whole thing. But there is a video that I will probably just send out in an email. So if you have the time to watch it, it's a really useful tool to have. It's just talking about affirming all genders at camp, and discussing that. So I'll send that in an email. I'd really love it for you guys to watch because it really goes into details on specifically like pronouns and using pronouns. That's something that we do at camp. So I did when I logged in, I had my pronouns, but when we have our names for Zoom calls at camp, we do ask that if you feel comfortable putting your pronouns. But that video just kind of talks about that. So I'll send out an email if you have time to watch it. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Really, the first 12 minutes is really good. If you want to watch the whole thing, I think it's 55 minutes. The whole thing is really great if you have time. But first 10 minutes, I would ask that you watch it because that'll be really helpful when it comes to camp and creating that safe space for our campers. So, okay, well, just do a really quick recap. Just important things to take away. If there's a prejudice remark, make sure that the camper affected is approached first. Make sure that they feel like they are seen and heard and they're able to share those feelings with you. And again, reinforcing that it's not the affected or camper's responsibility to forgive the other person if they are hurt by somebody else. Just keeping that in mind. And yeah, I think this was a really good session that we had, besides the technical difficulties. Thanks for sticking with me on that, bub. Yeah, this was really great. Thank you all for creating this safe space for us to have these discussions. I think this went really well. And just keep these in mind when we're coming up to camp. And yeah, if you ever have any questions or if something comes up and you really aren't sure what to do, please reach out to another counselor, specifically the directors, though. If you have any questions, they're there to help, or our camp advisor, she will also be there to help as well. So yeah, that's it. We're done for today. Great job, guys. Thank you all for coming and sticking with me, and I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you the next time I see you.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.